Welcome to the Music Reel. I'm your host, Nicola Burton. Today I have the pleasure of speaking with Sophie Kirov, who is the manager of the new agency Lost Motel. And she's also here today to talk about the Australian Live Music Business Council, recently launched in response to the lockdown impact on the Australian music industry. Sophie, welcome to the Music Reel.
Thanks so much for having me. Very happy to be here.
I'm very glad to talk to you, Sophie, because obviously here we are, August 2020. We would never have dreamed that this year would have had such an impact on our industry. And so I'm really excited to hear about this business council. So let's get right back in there. Maybe you can introduce how it came about, who are the key founders, and what's the primary objective for the business council?
Right, so the Business Council was set up by Stephen Wade from Select Music, and it involves, he's got a bunch of different people who he's been working with to build that one, and the council has really been set up to create kind of this unified voice really amongst the music industry. Obviously, we haven't, as much as there's been like manager groups and groups that have looked after specifically road crew or festivals, there hasn't really been a specific group that's looked after the live music business industry or that side of the industry. And so, yeah, that's where it all came about, and it's been amazing.
Wow. Well, look, it's been a long time coming. We've had, a lot of peak bodies, as you've said, but to find that, I guess, that pathway that we can all take together to rebuild the industry, I think is so critical. So let's, I think two things have been released so far. You've got the gig dashboard and then insurance matrix. Can you talk a little bit
that's correct.
About that?
Yeah, so, one of the big things that, we'd all been finding really is, business members within the industry is that really being able to follow that idea of best practice within the industry had always been really challenging. It was always this sort of, you heard a whisper from someone else, and we were kind of all getting these like sort of hand-me-down messages from all over. And so particularly coming out of what we've all been going through this year, it was, and with the setting up of the council, it became really apparent that we needed these sort of these really important resources that people could make sure that when they were coming back into, doing shows again or being able to operate again, that they had the correct information and the correct tools available to them. So the Gig Ready dashboard is that, getting the industry gig ready, making sure that we're following the correct guidelines, the correct COVID guidelines, correct health guidelines, venue guidelines, all that side of it. And then obviously on the insurance matrix side, we have the resource there to make sure that all those different types of businesses within the industry, whether they're sole traders, agents, promoters, managers, artists themselves, up to, those bigger production companies, that they have all their correct insurances in place. And making sure that, as we get more information through, that matrix is then updated and people, can make sure they've got the correct information.
It is fantastic. We've needed this for a long time.
I know. It's amazing.
Because, people are feeling so down about it. And I think this is a good news story to hear that this initiative is actually happening.
100%.
I've talked to, I think, 170 people in the Reel since March to try and get a sense of how everyone's feeling. And a lot of people have said that they'd like to see some changes in terms of how we collect data in the business side of things. Is that something that you guys are looking at in terms of, I guess, it seemed like when the government released its funding, they didn't really understand us as a whole of industry. Yeah. It seemed like there were some gaps there. So what do you think we could do differently in terms of collecting data so that we have a little access to, I guess, the reality of our industry a little bit more?
Well, that was really even where the ALMBC was set up, on the basis that there was no, the data itself was kind of had been pulled together from, all these different places for even to be to be able to say, this is how many people work in live music and this is how much money we have actually been like we've actually lost through the course of COVID and, you know, for the next 6 months, 12 months, whatever that may look like. So even that alone, with setting up the ALMBC, we've been able to say, well, look, within our council, we already have 500 different members. So there's 500 businesses that are involved. They represent, you know, some 28,000 employees. We know that we've lost $135 million in revenue already. And so even being able to now have that concrete data, and it's not just numbers that have been pulled out of the sky, it's, you know, literally surveying our members going, like, tell us, how have you been affected? And moving forward, we can continue to survey those members and continue to check in with them and make sure that, you know, we're keeping updated with how much revenue is out of place and how many people are being affected, but also trying to have that uniform message for when we do need to go back to the government. We're not kind of pulling at straws for what we think we need. We can actually go, well, as a representative for this many businesses, this is what they need. And this is that concrete data that we have, which I think is just incredibly valuable.
We need it because we haven't had that central source of data up until this point. I don't know if you read the Making Music Work report that was released by Griffith University in Queensland recently. Dr. Christina Balaco, she was the research fellow on it, and she was saying how even with the census, you can't necessarily say that you're a musician and another job. You can only just put down your one job. So the census isn't even really trapping.
I know.
So how do we actually collect the information of who's doing what? What do they need? Where are they doing it? How much are they earning? How much are they actually contributing to the Australian economy? So
exactly right.
Step. And I think without the data, we can't have a roadmap to recovery, can we?
Exactly. And, you know, even the conversations that have been had, I mean, we would almost be able to compare the conversations had with even just, say, the Minister's office, say, 6 months ago, for what he thought even what he thought the music industry was. It was like, it's like the understanding now versus what it looked like then is completely different. I mean, of course, these, you know, people knew that it was what a band going on stage and doing a show was, but they now realise that it's so much more than just that, and how many people and how many businesses are involved with putting that show on stage. And I think that messaging will continue, you know, will become more and more mainstream, which I think is really fantastic for the board, and for the council, for businesses really in the industry, that they actually, you know, they're being really represented in the right places. And, you know, we have unified messaging. So I think that, as exactly as you said earlier, you know, there's a lot of toughness that still goes on with the pandemic, but there's little silver linings that are coming out of it as well.
This is definitely a light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah.
When it first happened, I cancelled $6 million out of our system alone just for a couple of months. And I rang our local arts minister and I said, look, what do you recommend? And she said, tell everyone to move home and live with their parents. And I said, she just kind of didn't really have an understanding of the enormity of the ecosystem for this industry. Yeah. And I think now we're starting to go, oh, wow, there's actually a lot of value in this industry. Could you imagine the Olympic Games without music? Could you imagine a wedding without music? Could you imagine going shopping in Woolies without music? I mean, it's everywhere. So it costs a lot of money to create that. So it's great that you guys are actually giving us a voice. It's such good news to hear about what you guys are doing. So I guess finally, we need a bit of a call to action for a roadmap to recovery. So what do you guys recommend for anyone who's watching this? So agents, managers, artists, production company, crew, what do you recommend that we do collectively to help you guys do what you're going to do in terms of getting us onto recovery?
Well, I mean, first and foremost, come join the ALMBC. I think that's that's a really important one. I mean, you have to be part of the conversation, and the best way that you can do that is to be in the conversation. So definitely come and be a member. Support as a financial member if you can. I know that there is like an introduction thing going at the moment where I'm pretty sure the fees can be held off just until January if there are people going through some financial hardship, of course, at the moment that can't do that right now. Outside of that, if you have time available, there are a number of working groups that the council do have at the moment that people can, of course, get involved in, so they can have a voice, be part of the communication, and so we can get the most ideas out of everyone, see what we can do next. And if finance and time is tricky, then probably have social media. So definitely, help share the messaging around on the socials, because, the more businesses that we can represent, it gives us a more accurate picture. So when we do, for one, we can have that unified message when we do go back to the, whether it's the minister or whether we're going to other small business associations and the like. But also the more businesses we do have involved, the more businesses will be able to follow best practice, so they can have access to that gig ready dashboard, they can have access to the insurance matrix, and as we start implementing resources over the coming months and years, then they can be they can have access to those resources as well. And the industry can really have that strength again, and we can really, we can just come back so much better. I mean, I know that's a hard one to think at this time that we're coming back, but eventually we will. There will be shows again.
We'll be stronger because we will have a better practice, and I think that's going to help everyone across the board. So I'll make sure I put the links to the Business Council in. And my question is, can artists join, or do you just need music businesses? Are they?
I mean, artists are definitely able to join as well. I mean, look, if you have an ABN, you're a business. So that's the crux of it, really. I mean, so we have, there's a number of sole traders. We're 50% of the membership is sole traders, and that's really important that that they're still able to one, of course, be part of the conversation, but they themselves, making sure that they're very much looked after, and that they themselves are introducing, the right systems and processes into their businesses as well.
This is great. I am so happy that you've taken the time to talk to me, and so that everyone
pleasure.
About it. Isn't it interesting how something really terrible happened, but something really great has happened as a result, that the council's actually been established because we've needed it for a long time. So, Sophie, thanks for taking the time.
No worries, Nicki. Thanks so much for having me.
Oh, look, it's been a pleasure. And everyone else, check out the ALMBC. All the links will be here. And look, you guys are open to any questions. If anyone has any, they can just contact you and start the conversation. So thank you, Sophie.
Thanks so much.